Well, since it's 12:59, please go ahead and have your cameras on, unless you guys let us know for some reason that you were gonna have your cameras off and we gave you the okay for that. Besides that, your camera should be on. See most of them coming on there. Thanks, guys. Yes, Ursh, I see your comment in the chat. It was a new link, so I realized it didn't have a waiting room. So everybody, whenever you joined, you were already in the space. So, yeah, for my folks, there's a few of you guys still with your cameras off. Go ahead and get yourself ready and turn your camera on, so we can jump in right at 1 o'clock. And I think we are still waiting momentarily on our guest speaker to join us.
I'm here. Good afternoon.
Oh, she is here. All right, Aisha, I'll hand the floor to you.
Yay, I'm excited. All right, so we have to do this the proper way because it should just happen this way. So, introduction of Sybil Stewart. She's a veteran of the workforce by her own design. Sybil Stewart has been a leader in her field for the past 15 years. A now resident of Durham, North Carolina, Sybil has helped individuals from all different backgrounds to help establish their brand and understand what the trajectory of their career should contain by their own efforts. As a CEO of Converge Wellness and a talk show host of over 10,000 voices on social media, Sybil has truly made a platform that is to be followed. Please welcome my career coach, mentor, advisor, and friend, Sybil Stewart.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's always weird hearing people talk about you, even though you wrote the thing. So thank you. And thank you all so much for allowing me to join you today. I am going to share my screen. Can I be pinned? Somebody asked in the chat. And Aisha, I will ask if you wouldn't mind minding the chat because I won't be able to see it once I start presenting. So if people have questions, I am all about the questions in real time. Can you all see my screen? Yay? Yes, yes, yes. Awesome. Great. So thank you. Yes, 15 years in human resources. Taught me a lot. I am all about the human aspect of building a personal brand, and it's definitely one of my passions as a career coach, a business consultant, and of course an advisor and mentor to so many women and people who are wanting to enter the workforce differently. So I want to invite all of you for just a few moments because in addition to all of the amazing titles that I've been given throughout my career, I have to say my favorite one is a storyteller. And it's because I believe stories are the one thing that unifies each of us to each other. And one of my favorite stories, and y'all don't judge me until you hear me out, one of my favorite stories is The Emperor's New Clothes. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with that amazing piece of literature, the story goes, there are two thieves that approach the kingdom. They convince the guards to let them in the kingdom to dress the then king. And they take an audience with the king, and the king says, yes, I want the clothes. They get busy working on the clothing. And the king sends the first messenger down and says, hey, what's going on down there? And they say, oh, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. They send the second person down there a couple of days later, concerned that their garment isn't going to be ready. And the guy's like, you just won't believe it. It's unimaginable. And then the king sends the third, person down there, the highest in the kingdom, and says, yep, you won't believe it, and I can't either. So the day of the parade comes, the king then goes to try on their clothes and realizes that there is nothing there. But because of the fear that he's already put into other people, he then has to follow through with the storyline that the thieves gave them, which is there is something there though we can't see. And I think today we are at a place in time in our corporate careers where we are realizing a lot of these corporations have on no clothes. We are at a place in time where we are getting to decide how we define professionalism, how we define business, how we show up in the world. And with that comes a greater responsibility. And it also comes with meeting, managing, and overcoming your fears of entering the workplace. And that's the real power behind creating a personal brand billboard. So I want to invite each of you, and I forgot I put my mouse over here. Y'all, I don't like slides. I intentionally leave slides blank because it doesn't make sense. Slides don't make sense to me. So as a part of my personal brand, you might see the slide more than one time. But I want to invite each of you to take the next few minutes and think about your fears that you have as you are entering the workplace for the first time or re-entering the workforce with a new title or a new job description or a new skill set that is yet untested. What are some of your concerns? And I would even invite our staff to do this as well. Some of your concerns for how you get to show up based off of your ethnicity or skin color or gender. So I want to take just 2 or 3 minutes to write that down, capture it. This is actually one of my favorite exercises. If you really want to be brave, put yourself on mute and talk to yourself for 3 minutes and see how you sound to you. But I'm going to start my imaginary timer now. So at 1:09, we'll come back. Give us 1 more minute here to talk to ourselves. And as you're wrapping up, think about even your fears around having this dialogue today about how willing you are to participate. So I want to invite each of you to even think about that. The likelihood of your participation today in a dialogue. While I love talking, I like dialogues as well. And any concerns you might have about sharing your journey. All right, and as we begin to wrap up, I want to go ahead and invite everybody to definitely follow me on all social medias. Definitely check out my talk show, now streaming on Roku and Fire Stick, because storyteller. Yes. And like I said, don't forget, if you've got a question, to please pop it in the chat. I will try to make sure to take purposeful pauses for Aisha, just in case I miss something because I can't see it while I'm navigating. So when we first chatted about what it was that I could potentially offer you all today, I thought about the road that I traveled to get to the place where I got extremely comfortable, not only sharing my brand, but my voice with now the world, and the exercises in patience and accountability and responsibility that I had to take on while I was yet doing it. And thanks to ChatGPT, I came up with these 5 V's that actually make sense because I like alliterations, but I knew I wanted voice. And voice is more than just how you project. Voice is also around how you appear and the message that literally goes before you, even before you show up in the room, okay? We're gonna sit on voice. The other components of building a solid personal brand strategy include your value systems, your belief system, the vision that you have for the life you intend to live, the visuals, different than vision, but the assets, the intellectual property, or perhaps thought leadership pieces that you produce online, etc. Any new technologies or innovative experiences that you're bringing to the workplace. And then validation are simply people affirming that you, the contrarian, was right in the room. So why I intend to focus on voice today, and the large part of what I do with my clients, is because so often we get caught in all of the other components of our brand voice that we miss the opportunity to communicate it throughout the course of our storytelling journey. I had a mentor earlier in my career who very intentionally told me that the person who tells the best story wins. And I thought, certainly that's not the case. It's the hard worker in the room, because that was me. It's the most educated in the room. No, it really was the person who told and sold the best story through their interview process, through their resume, through their attire, through every other avenue and vehicle that I was not taking advantage of. And once I realized that I had to become a great storyteller to accelerate and propel my career to where it was when I finally transitioned out of corporate, I had to do some real good internal work. I had to address, which I had you all do briefly, my fears around why I would or would not connect everybody to the important parts of my story that were worth sharing. I had to reconcile with not only the societal pressures, but the family pressures of being one of the first to finish college and being one of the few that got a master's. And while those were important to my story, those were not the things that separated me when it came time for me to get a promotion. I also thought it had to do with me straightening my hair. So I went through a period of hair straightening because I wanted to fit in, and it didn't matter. What mattered was, how could I create the best brand voice that would resonate in the room that I was in? And so I invite all of you for a few minutes to think about, what is the voice that you are giving to people when you are entering the room? Even when you're not in the room, what do they remember about you when you leave? This idea of business professional and what to wear and how I show up, that's all fine and all, but is that also the thing you're willing to stand up for? When I decided to take on building a solid personal brand, and for those of you who have seen me on LinkedIn, it's like #PurpleIsProfessional, because I recall the times in my career when I was called unprofessional. And I wanted to be able to stand up, not only for myself, but those in the room who needed an advocate. And in fact, I'm standing right now because that's just a lot more comfortable than sitting while presenting today. But I had to make a very intentional effort towards creating the brand voice that I needed people to remember about me, color scheme included. So what I want to invite you all to do, second activity, and I will pop this download in the chat here. Finally opening up the chat. Actually, I'll ask, does anybody have any questions while I am popping this in the chat? If it'll work. There it is. It is a PDF. If you're unable to open up the PDF, definitely let me know. I'm going to put the same information on the screen as well, but I wanted to be able to provide you all with that mini handout while we're going through this exercise. If you're not able to open it, definitely go ahead and put a grid on your paper or open up your Excel, whichever, that mirrors what is on the screen right now. So that's literally 6 and 6. Nothing too difficult here. Next steps, now that we've put our fears aside and are prepared to step into our truest and newest brand voice, is I'm going to invite you to select the top 10 words. Don't get fancy on me. Top 10 words that you need people to learn about you when you are in the room, and the things that you need them to remember about you when you leave, okay? Because our fears are on the table. As a matter of fact, you tear that recording up, you do whatever you need discard. Think about the truest voice that you need people to learn about you when you're done. So remember these columns. If you downloaded it, go ahead and take your top 10 if you were able to download. And I don't know why this is not letting me advance. So I'm going to go over here and hit the advance that way. Top 10, keep them in the same columns. Just put an X if you have, or circle, highlight, etc. And I'm going to give each of us a few minutes. Top 10 words. And for my next trick, I'm going to learn how to add music into Canva. So. I'm going to try and close that out. Perfect. Once you are done putting in your top 10 words on your paper, if you would, in the chat, type top 10, just in the chat, top 10, top 10, top 10. That way I can keep an eye on how fast we're getting through. Okay, I think there's about 110 people on the call, so I want that number at least past 70. I like participation points. I used to be a school teacher. Awesome. Alrighty, thank you all for participating today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I still see the chat going. So with your top 10, I wonder, do we see trends? Do we see some boxes and columns that some of our words are clumped together? Do we see a trend? Unless there's always that one random person that has an X literally in every box. I invite them to come talk to me afterwards so we can figure some things out. But we should see some trends in these columns. And these trends are the beginning of how you build your strong brand voice. These are the things you want people to remember about you when you leave the room. Therefore, you need to figure out how to communicate them every single time. Like I said, when I first began my brand journey in human resources, I did not want to come off as intimidating. And in fact, that is the last thing anybody wants from a human resource professional. So anytime someone called me intimidating, I gasped, clutched my pearls, and then minimized my voice so that they would find me comfortable and harmonious and grounded and wise and, optimistic. And I was walking around with this really demure presence. And I said, but this really is not me. Why am I uncomfortable with someone calling me intimidating? So I did this exercise with my coach, because coaches have coaches. And she said, is that what you want people to remember about you? That you are kind, dependable, and safe? And I said, well, no, not really. I need people to know that I'm an advocate, that I am powerful, that I'm courageous. And she said, well, then why are those the words you selected? And what I came to realize is because those are the words I was trained to select in my career. But as I pivoted and shifted into entrepreneurship and as CEO and talk show host and all of the things, I realized I get to do the choosing. And the words that I choose happen to be powerful and disciplined and sophisticated. And I get to be passionate and courageous, because who wants a coach who's not going to advocate for them? Who wants someone speaking up if they aren't willing to ruffle some feathers in between? So I realized in building my personal brand voice that I was going to have to own all of the parts of the words that I wanted people to remember about me. And in fact, as a storyteller, I didn't want to be dependable or safe. I wanted to be able to come to a group like you all today and talk about The Emperor's New Clothes, even if no one's ever read the text but me. I wanted to be able to stand firm on the things that would make me memorable. And so if you lean back into your words, make your final selections, and realize that those are the things you want people to remember you by, how then do you reflect that on your resume, on your LinkedIn profile? One of the things that I changed as I was evolving is even my posture. And if you've followed me, like I said, I now have a straightforward profile. Before, I was turned to the side, because side profile means a little bit more demure, a little bit more, inviting, whereas forward facing meant dominant. Okay, great. Yes, I'm a high D on the DISC, according to the DISC. Great. I need to change my posture. What else did I need to do in my profiles on social media? I had to change the language that I was using. I had to follow and unfollow certain people that aligned with my new brand. I had to redo my resume for the final time to include my new posture as an advocate and a storyteller, to make sure that people understood that while I can be grounded, dependable, and safe and knowledgeable, I must also be courageous, passionate, and energetic. And so as you're crafting your personal brand voice, your personal brand story, I invite you to think about every single thing your brand voice touches and how you can intentionally communicate it across all vehicles. Through your resume, can somebody prove that if you decide that you want to be fashionable, how can you communicate that through your workplace experience? If the jobs that you're going after or starting require you to be organized and punctual, how can you put that into written word to make sure that the person reading the content can picture that and capture that immediately and not have to ask you any additional questions other than when can you start and how much do you want? You've got to figure out how to get these things done in 30 seconds or less, and this is the LeapPad to help you do that. From there, and I know we've all heard of the elevator pitch, you begin to develop your elevator pitch with these words in mind. So my elevator pitch, when I decided to become a storyteller, and I'll go through my process, mine became, I want to redefine professional. And somebody's like, well, what does that mean? And I'm like, I don't know what that means. Oh, I want to make sure that I'm able to create space for other people to occupy, for them to feel like however they get to show up in the world is how they get to show up. But they've got to be accountable to it. Okay, well, who are you doing that for? Women, people of color, the neurodiverse, anyone who needs extra space in the world. All right, and how are you going to get that done? Through coaching and consulting. That is my why. That's why I show up. That's my elevator pitch. And I had to rehearse it because not only did I need to convince other people of what I was doing as a personal brand coach, but I had to convince myself. And I went through my 10 words and literally committed them to memory until I got comfortable with using my voice every single time that I consistently could say, rattle off, I am here to redefine professional anytime somebody asked me why I was in the room. So in your creation of your personal brand, I want you to consider how can you get to a place where you've not only committed those 10 words to memory, but you figured out how to use them in a meaningful way for whatever room you are entering in. I'm going to pause here and see if anybody's got any questions, because I can't see the chat. Any questions in the chat, or anyone brave enough to open up their mic and ask me a question? don't think I see anything.
Isaiah.
So I was gonna ask, how do you define these like specific words that you say are the ones that you want to define yourself, and how do you implement them in your daily life to make sure that when this thing happens, you're able to make sure that you can execute?
How do I, so I want to make sure I'm going to repeat the question back. How do I define these words you said? And then how do I make sure I implement them as I am communicating with people? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Isaiah. Can't see. So I believe in common knowledge definitions, and I believe I get to define the thing if I don't know what the definition is. So for example, if one of your words is serene, and you want people to think that there's a serenity about you, perhaps you wear, and I'll talk about this in a second, maybe you wear some cooler tones. Your language on your resume might evoke emotions of, wow, this person is going to be a really calm presence in the room. It's really about understanding the power of words, the definitions of the words we use, and how people usually use them. If you want people to think that you are a humanitarian, for example, you get to talk up the fact that you volunteer at your church or in the community, or that project that you took on because you saw a need. If you need people to know you're creative, maybe you introduce some different colors into your resume. Please no fuchsia or anything outrageous, but maybe you do a pop of color that says, you know what, I'm an artist, I'm a creative, and this is what people need to know about me. So there are a lot of different ways it can evolve depending on what your top 10 words are and where they've kind of clustered. And if you really want to be brave, you'll tell me if you have specific columns that you fit in, and I can do it right now on the spot.
I would have to say, I'll go with the like natural, sensible, and comfortable column. That would probably be like my main.
Got it. And what type of jobs are you applying for or already received?
At the moment, I work at Cobb as a manager, so I try to use that comfortability portion of it to like make sure that everyone else feels comfortable on the shifts and can stay focused, I guess.
Yeah, so that's absolutely correct. When you are engaging with your staff and other leaders, you need for them to have an additional layer of comfort with engaging with you. So perhaps it's how you manage your one-on-ones, that you do more of a dialogue instead of a dictatorship. Perhaps it is in how you lead meetings, not as the only person speaking, but as a shared platform. When you think about you wanting people to feel comfortable with you, think about, again, since you're already employed, not resume, but think about your, again, LinkedIn profile. Maybe you wear a softer color, muted tones, but still sending a very intentional message around those words that you feel like embody where you are right now. Does that help?
A little bit. I was gonna ask about like those colors you were saying. Like, which colors would you say are calmer colors, and which ones are more aggressive?
Look at you jumping ahead. Not aggressive. That's not the word we use. We say assertive colors. We say energetic colors. Jumping ahead. Yes. So there they go. The color psychology. Y'all, I have a degree in psychology, and talk about coming full circle. It's like, I am never going to use a psychology degree. And here I am talking about the brand psychology, the color psychology. Because as consumers, we buy with our eyes. 80% of our buying decisions are made because of color theory, because of color psychology, because of color messaging. So while we don't want to do the things and play the game's already rigged, right? And it's based off of how we are in society. Our prehistoric brains have yet to catch up to the innovation that is AI. So we're literally functioning with those exact same tools millions of years later. I see the chat going. Are there questions before I jump into color psychology?
No, they're giving you kudos on your psychology major, Sybil.
Oh, thank you. That's a major you major in when you don't know what else to major in. It's just like psychology. It's finally working for me. So, psychology of color, really quick presentation on that. Each color evokes a different emotion. Hence, my black and white and red all over motif. Like I said, I needed people when they interacted with me to understand that I was disciplined, if you want to call me intimidating, fine, sophisticated, exciting, energetic. I needed people to understand that I was going to be discreet, because I have to be discreet as a coach, but also in human resources. So those were the colors that literally found me. I didn't say, gee, I think I want to wear these things, but as I evolved in my wardrobe, in my career, and in my storytelling, I found myself literally leaning into these colors accidentally. That's why when I hear a lot of coaches say, oh, find your niche, I'm like, no, your niche might find you. My color story found me while I was yet finding my voice. And so I will go ahead and invite you all to take a few minutes. If you see some colors that are really leaping out at you, I'm not going to talk about hue and saturation and tone and all of those things, art history, but know that even your appearance, your colors are sending a message, and that's an opportunity for you to intentionally communicate an additional layer of your story as well. Great question, Isaiah. Thank you for that. So I'll leave that up for another 30 seconds. I also think I have it in my download as well. If not, y'all just message me and I would be more than happy to give it to you. I'm also keeping an eye on time here. So go ahead and scan this QR code. I want to talk about Zoom backgrounds, but I really appreciate you all if you would take a few moments and answer what you feel about my session so far. I'm going to talk more about the Emperor's New Clothes, but brave people, when you are done, would you type in your top 2 or 3 colors? Because I love building color stories while I can live. So as you were doing that, thank you, Anthony, for taking that screenshot. Blue, orange, sherbet. Ooh, someone is very dependable. What industry do you walk in? Black and gold top 2 for Dylan. Yellow and gold. Black and gold top 2. Nice. Green and yellow. It's always been red. That's right. That's right. Because hashtag red is professional. Because red lipped. That's right. Pink, yellow, and black. Oh, I love that color combination. Awesome. Few more seconds to scan the QR code. Grab your download when you hit that brand button. I've got a couple of additional questions there that I know I wouldn't get a chance to cover today. Things like, how do I communicate my pronouns? Or how do I communicate if I have an accessibility question? Or what do I need to say throughout the interview or application process if I have, if I'm in additional need of services? I know I saw somebody perhaps turn on closed caption, and definitely reach out to me if you need a copy of the slide deck. Reach out to me if you want copies of my notes. I do try to always prepare those for those who need them, because I know that not all of us are created the same, and that's okay, because neurodiverse is normal. Blue, green, love it. Give us one more second here before I touch Zoom hacks. And it is this. I want to point back to the original story that I started with, The Emperor's New Clothes, and say that so many of our fairy tales are actually based on true stories, or they are based on old folklore. And as I dug deeper, because I like history and all the things, the real story of the Emperor's New Clothes is far more telling of societal challenges and pressures. And the real story goes that there were 3, not 2, travelers, not thieves, who came to the castle, and it was not a king, it was actually a prince. And the way the story goes is the prince inherited all of this wealth, but they were not supposed to. They were not the prince from the actual bloodline. And history says that because they were not from the actual royal bloodline, they spent an inordinate amount of time trying to figure out how to look the part. So the travelers caught word that this prince was desperate enough to do anything, including spending all of the kingdom's wealth, to make sure they felt like they fit in. They needed to prove that they were deserving of the title, even though they weren't born of royal bloodline. And then the story continues. But fast forward to the very end, of course, we know the emperor ends up naked. And I call it the heroine of the story, and it's a little boy who raises his voice and says, "Hey, you've got on no clothes." And I thought about how that mirrors the times when in my career I had to tell people who I worked with, "Hey, I don't think you have on any clothes." And those were the 3 times that I was called unprofessional, which is why I rage against, rage is my word, I rage against being called unprofessional or professional. This ideal of professional is because the 3 times I was called unprofessional were the times where I was most professional. But I was also the lone voice in the room. And the first time that I was called unprofessional was when I reported sexual harassment in the workplace. I was fresh out of college, 25 years old, gung-ho about making a difference, and in less than a year was exited unprofessional. The second time that I was cited as being unprofessional was the day I decided that I was going to embrace being a curly girl, and I was told that my hair was unprofessional, and I thought, well, I just don't know what to do about this because I'm done with modifying how I'm showing up in the world. And the third time that I was called unprofessional, probably the most telling, was when I was in a room of C-suite individuals, and I decided to advocate not only for myself, but those in the room who needed my voice. And it was in these moments that I realized that it's my job, it's y'all's job, it's all of our jobs to determine what the new face of professional looks like. It's our job to raise our voice and say the emperor has on no clothes. So as you embark on your brand voice journey, I again invite you to figure out, and again, this is why I don't sit, I stand. I invite you to figure out what you stand for. What are you willing to use your brand voice for that is outside of your comfortability? How can you hold yourself and others in the room accountable for the space that you are occupying? Because you deserve to take up all of the space. And Aisha's like, yes, you get to take up all of the space you occupy. How can you do that in a way that is meaningful, memorable, and accountable not only to yourself, but the others in the room? How can you get to a place where when you walk in the room, people remember you for those 10 words that you said agree with who you are? How can your mood, and y'all, I'm a whole mood, yes. How can your mood today be redefined professional? So I'm going to pause for questions before I talk about Zoom hacks. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
All right, Aisha, should we go ahead and do the Q&A? What do you think?
Sure, go for it.
All right, so we have. Thank you again. That is wonderful. I was caught up myself in thinking about all the things there. So thank you so much for that. That was awesome, especially the colors. I think about that, how much that shows in the workplace when people come to work, what colors they choose to wear for sure. So we have some questions that people were, we make them do a little research before we have a guest speaker come. Check out your LinkedIn, check out what you're all about before they come and speak to us. And so we have them submit some questions ahead of time, and then we kind of use that to kick off the Q&A, and then we'll open the floor after that, let more people come in with questions that they would like. So Aviana has our first question, so I'll give the floor to her to ask her question.
Hi, my name is Aviana. My question is, what are 2 skills that you attribute to your success?
2 skills? Oh my goodness. My skills had nothing to do with my success. And I know that's not what anybody really wants to hear. My success really is attributed to the fact that, number 1, I recognized that the only competition in the room was me. And number 2, I needed to figure out how to find the sponsor in the room. Those are not skills that we are taught while we are yet studying with the blue book in hand. But those are the 2 things that helped me get very clear about my career trajectory. When I realized when I was applying for a job, I'm the only person that mattered in the room. And when I realized when I walked in the room, I needed to figure out who my advocate was, I got the job every single time.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. All right, Abraham has our next question.
Good afternoon, Sybil. Thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your knowledge and a little bit about yourself. You kind of answered the question a little bit during your presentation, but the question I was selected was, what were the biggest obstacles that you had to go through during your career path?
Outside of the 3 times I was called unprofessional. Y'all, I laugh about it now. It's the funny, not funny while you're going through the things. But what I have learned is when I can keep a humor about the obstacles, then I can now communicate them as the opportunities that I've had to separate myself. And even in interviews, I talk about those, well, no longer interviewing, but I would talk about those experiences to help me clarify, is this the right employer for me? Are you going to tolerate sexual harassment? Right? Because the interview is not just for them, it's also for you. And if I can encourage any of you on the call, if you're still in that search process, you get to do the choosing, okay? Your employer is going to ask you all the questions, but you've got to be armed and ready with yours, because you've got to be saying, okay, what am I willing or not willing to accept from this employment experience as it relates to my overall vision for my life? So that would actually be what I would say is obstacles being what they are, accountability being what it is. If you're always approaching in truth, then that's all that matters.
Awesome. Great insight there. Madeli has our next question.
Hi, Sybil. My name is Mirari. I want to thank you as well for coming and sharing your experiences and knowledge. My question is, what's the best advice you can give to help plan a career rather than simply to work to keep a job?
Work to keep a job, then figure out your career. And I know that sounds wrong, but when you are yet working, and I tell people, work as if, okay? Work as if it's yours, okay? You will figure out what things you enjoy and what things you don't enjoy, even if it's not the perfect fit. You will figure out how you work, when you are best energized to do work, the times of day that you are most creative, the times of day when you need that second cup of caffeine. When you are yet working on the things you don't enjoy, that's when you figure out what you really want to do. I can't stress that enough. I fell into human resources after being a school teacher because teachers simply don't get compensated enough, but that's not this platform. Aside from that, I said, how can I leverage the things that I enjoyed about teaching? What career trajectory would allow me to do some of the things I like and introduce me to the things that I maybe never experienced? So work as if, and then create a list. And every 3 months, and I know that might sound a little aggressive, every 3 months, you need to reflect on the things that you've accomplished and rate them. And when you get to a place where you're like, you know what, I really don't want to ever do this again, then that next job, that's on I'm never doing it again list. And you don't do it. You get clear about what you care about. And that is how you find what it is you want to do.
Awesome. Tommy has our next question.
Hey Zilla, thank you for being here. My question is, what made you want to create your business? And do you have any advice for anyone starting a business?
Yes, go do it. Go do it. I actually did a speaking engagement a couple of weeks ago for a women's organization here in Raleigh on intro to entrepreneurship and some of the myths. I spent most of that chat debunking myths. And so I'm going to lean in for a few minutes into the myths of entrepreneurship so that way you can see it's the exact same thing is going to work. Number one, entrepreneurship is expensive. Well, so is student loans. Okay? Do you want to spend $100,000 building your brand empire, or do you want to spend $100,000 paying off student loans? Number two, the failure rate for year one in business is 80% or whatever that magic number is. And I thought to myself, okay, well, it's actually closer to 18 months. But corporate side, that's also the average length somebody spends in a position before they decide they're no longer a go fit or they want a promotion. That is the point where people reinvent themselves. Every 18 months, you are literally reinventing yourself anyway. So if you think about your business the same way as your career, it's the same reinvestment period. It just happens to look different. Number three, and I go back to let your niche find you, don't force yourself. When I first, chuckling now, when I first started coaching, somebody said, oh, are you a trauma coach? And I was, oh gosh, I pray not. Because that's not what I'm signing up for. I'm not signing up for trauma. But I realized that was the messaging people saw in me, and I had to redirect and re-identify how I was messaging my exact same package. So it's all the more important to figure out what your offering is and then test. Somebody needs your solution. One of my favorite sayings is my drive is directly correlated to somebody else's direction. So if I'm not on the right road, that person can't come behind me and follow. So if you're really interested in being an entrepreneur, you've probably already been bit by the entrepreneurial bug. You were probably up there selling ice cream and lollipops and such way back when. It's already in you. Embrace it and then figure out how to make it happen.
Awesome. Love that insight. Lisette has our next question.
Hi, good afternoon. My question was, what drives you to become the successful woman you are today? And the second part for that would be, what advice or tips would you give a young woman wanting to better herself?
1% every day. That is one of my favorite phrases. I don't know who said it. I don't want to lie and say that was me, because it was not. 1% better every day is what I aim for, right? We're on a constantly moving trajectory. And I told somebody when I got tired of taking the corporate ladder, I decided to take the stairs. Okay, stairs are safer. Take the stairs. It is okay to stop, land, reassess, and then move forward. To your success question, success nearly cost me my life, and so I'm never going to do success again. What I am going to do is be the best version of me. I did the things. I made all the money. I had all the titles. and I was working 20-hour days. That was not success. That was death. So success for me is life. Success for me is I get to. When I say those words, I get to, anything that follows after that is how I define success. So I would ask you, how are you defining it today versus tomorrow versus your vision for life?
Can you repeat that question? Sorry.
I get to, or the how do you personally define success, and what is that going to look like for you?
For me personally, it'd just be more so having a free lifestyle, being able to afford the things I need but also want, and just being able to not have to worry about working every day for extended periods of time, and just being able to enjoy life. And that's what we're meant to do, just enjoy life, not just work and work and work.
All the truth, all the truth. I would then say to you, as well as everybody else on here, somebody said their mentor wants them to do something every day. Oh, you mean journal? Hey, journal every day until you get comfortable, Nathaniel. But yes, back to enjoying life. It sounds like what we all want is ease and comfort. Ease and comfort also comes at a cost, and ease and comfort really depends on your definitions of that. Do you want the 5,000 square foot house, or are you okay with the tiny hut in the backyard? Do you want to travel the world every year, or are you okay with a road trip on Amtrak? When you get really specific about what that balance of experience looks like for you, then you can then have that intentional conversation with yourself. You say, you know what, I get to do these things. Last year I got to go to London because I was like, I'm tired. But I also knew that the trade-off was the 20-hour work days. So did I really get to go to London, or was I just trying to survive while I was walking through London, right? Think about the trade-offs that you are willing to have, and that will evolve your definition of success.
Awesome. I think success is always one of those buzzwords that people want to talk about success, but what do they really mean? No, I appreciate that. All right, Adam has our next question.
Hi, thank you for being here, and I got a question, and it is, how did you build your public speaking skills?
How do you? My speaking coach said, speak or speak. That is it. That is the solution. If you want to go out and do something, go out and do the thing. Even if it's complimentary, I never say free. Even if it's pro bono, even if it's create the opportunities to get comfortable with hearing yourself. Another thing that I recommend, and like I said, I know we only did it for 3 minutes, is a 20-minute talk, a 20-minute listening to the words you use, how you inflect, 20 minutes of just your mind being at ease without fears of somebody hearing you or listening or worry, and you will hear how you sound to you, and then you get to decide, is this how I really want to sound, or do I want to be able to say something different? Am I okay with my southern drawl, y'all? Yes, I am. That's how you develop a public speaking platform and persona, because ultimately we are all on this world stage, so you might as well act upon it. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, public speaking is a big thing they always practice in our program, so great insight there. And our last question, at least from the prepared ones, is Zachary.
I think you're on mute, Zachary.
I apologize. How are you doing today?
I am well, thank you.
My question is, what hobbies have you picked up that have helped you in your career?
Oh my gosh, did you see my post about being a hobby hopper? Did you see that one? No? Okay. I am a hobby hopper, but psychology shows, who's my entrepreneur I just talked to? Tommy, was that you? Psychology shows that hobby hoppers actually make the best entrepreneurs because they by nature want to problem solve what is yet to be. That's why people hobby hop, is because they love the innovation and the newness of a hobby. So I am a musician. I have always been a musician. I told somebody if this coaching thing doesn't work out, I will just be a struggling artist. So I'm a multi-instrumentalist. That's the proper term for me. I play 7 different instruments, but my principal instruments are the violin, the harp, and the alto saxophone. Those are the things in my living room. That's why I'm pointing this way. And that is really how I recenter myself. That is how I gauge what my next steps are. It's a part of my meditation practice. And then I also make my own clothes, because when I couldn't find it in the store, I was like, I'm gonna do it myself.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, that was our last prepared question. I don't know if we want to jump to the Zoom hacks or we want to let more questions go. What do you think, Aisha?
Well, Kia put her hand up, so I'm assuming that we can just let this one go. So Kia, you can go. That's perfectly fine.
So great to have you. Thank you for coming. My question is along the lines of unprofessionalism. You spoke a lot about it. Now, was there ever a time where you were called unprofessional, but you actually took the feedback and maybe implemented it in your life?
No, but that's also my personality, okay? I want to be clear that it's amazing what people call you and what you accept. Somebody told me I was a contrarian, and I was like, well, yeah, I guess I am. And that's okay too. There are moments where I have been called unprofessional and I had to check it against what I believed about me. The 3 moments that I told you all about, I was like, I just don't think this is unprofessional at all. Now the other person, yes. But I'm also very careful with words and how I use words and how I let people use words against me. There have been times where somebody said my performance has come up short and they can list a reason. I will lean into that. But a blanket, you're unprofessional, does not, it doesn't move me, because I don't know what you mean, right? Because there were very clear moments, snapshots in time where, number one, I didn't believe my actions were unprofessional, but number 2, I was advocating for self. So I would be very careful if somebody does call you unprofessional, that you ask the question, what does that mean? And I need an example. And if the example is you turned in something late, that's not unprofessional, that's tardiness. If the example is you missed a meeting, that's a missed meeting. That's not unprofessional. Everyone misses meetings. Everyone has a calendar snafu. Everybody's got a blooper reel. So I would recommend to have that listening ear as you are engaging with people to figure out what the intent behind their message is. Great question.
Awesome. For the sake of time, Charlie, I think we should jump into the Zoom hacks.
Zoom hacks. So I don't think hybrid is ever going away. And as my coaching evolved, I realized I was also prepping my ladies, my executives, my entrepreneurs on their background. Obviously, I very intentionally have my background situated in such a place. So, Zoom hack number 1, blurred does not work. I know that blur is the safety net of Zoom. If you can, do not blur your background. It makes people think you have something to hide, and we have nothing to hide. We are walking brand billboards. Take an intentional 5 or 10 minutes to set up your Zoom background, to bring in things into your world that are going to be statement pieces and, again, memorable for the message you want people to receive and remember about you. 9 times out of 10, somebody says something about one of my words over here. The other 9 times, because bad math, they say, oh, wow, you match your background. Yes, thank you. Somebody always points out the confidence is the new black. Very intentional framing of self as well as what's on your walls. So, as you can tell, I have been perfectly situated in the middle of my frame, my wall frame, between the things that are on the left side and the things that are on the right side of me. So that is Zoom hack number 1, is frame yourself so you give people a focal point. My magic number is 3. Why? Psychology says that's how we learn. We learn things in 3s. Our ABCs are 1, 2, 3s. It's a song, we learn in 3s. So figure out 3s, and then everything should be in 3s. I've got 3 pieces of artwork. I've got 3 things here. I've got 3 things over here, and then I'm the 3rd in the bigger picture. Number 2, figure out a background color that matches your brand voice, and then figure out how to incorporate it into your attire. So often I have seen people who are visually overstimulating to me because I am a neurodiverse, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they've got psychedelic background and then they've got on a tie-dye shirt, and I don't know where to focus my eyes, so I can't look at you and see whether or not you're a wonderful human being or not. Figure out solid colors when you are on Zoom, and that will send the best message you can give without being distracting. The next thing you want to do, if you can, is incorporate additional lighting, especially if your workspace does not have adequate lighting. So right now I've got 3, 4, 5 lamps on because in the afternoon there is literally no sun in my office. So I've got to create lighting so that people can see me while I am on camera. Lighting did not cost that much. Thank you, Amazon.com. And it will help enhance the experience that people have when they are working with you. The other thing I recommend, and I know y'all can see my clip on my lapel as well as my microphone, this really does help cut down background noise, and I could tell the difference the minute I finished recording one of my first talk shows episodes is, it's like, oh wow, audio quality. Yes, audio quality matters. The name of the game, especially if you are a job seeker, is to stand out from the crowd. How do you do that? You do that with these additional small steps that don't cost a lot, don't break the bank here, that will make up the difference between the things you're doing, because other people are not doing them. Other people are using the blurred background and not getting the job or the promotion. Other people don't have good lighting and it looks like they're sitting in the dark. Other people have way too much noise going on in the background. And the last thing I would say is, and I don't know if y'all could hear all of the building going on outside my house, I sincerely hope not, is figure out how to isolate yourself from unneeded noise. So if you know you are, if you know that it's a noisier time of day for you, or this is the time when the kids are up, purposefully and intentionally schedule your interviews around your household schedule. Again, you get to. Would you want to work for an employer who says, no, I can't bump up this interview 30 minutes or bump it down 30 minutes? Probably not. That's a sign of their company culture. That's a sign that they may not accept all the fabulousness that you are once you get there. If they have a dog policy, my dog used to walk around the office during interviews because I went on the website and I was like, oh, they got a pet policy. And very intentionally pick Zoe up, put her in camera and say, hey y'all, I brought my dog to work today because I did my homework. So figure out how to match what it is you need to communicate to the rooms that you're in. The last thing is, and I see this so often, is make sure you know where the main camera screen is. Don't have your camera screen here and you're looking here, because people are going to think that you aren't paying attention. So wherever that main focal point is, make sure that that is where you look at. You look at the light, not at yourself. And those are my top Zoom hacks for hybrid working success. Thank you. Any final questions? I know I was here until 2:10-ish. Any final questions? Alrighty. Thank you. Again, you all, don't forget to connect with me on LinkedIn. Don't forget to check out my talk show, streaming now on Roku and Fire Stick TV. And I look forward to seeing all of you all be the amazing, successful individuals that you are, that are here to redefine professional. Why do I say redefine professional? Because nobody ever got ahead by fitting in. Thank you. You're so silly. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Alright, guys, thank you so much for coming out. As always a pleasure speaking with you, talking with you, and seeing your presentation. I get to do this whenever I feel like it, guys. Just saying, you should join in too. Charlie, do you have anything for C13 to do? Or are we good on this end, or you can do what you need to do?
We are good on this end. They just have, the only announcement is, instead of lab this afternoon for cohort 13, you have a book club introduction with me at 3:30. So there is a link on your Outlook calendar. Since I know we've had issues with Outlook, I will send it in the Slack channel as well. But we will be on that at 3:30, and that's all I've got, Aisha.
All right. Still, thank you, man. We will get up with you. I will reach out to you later. Enjoy your day.
Thank you. Y'all have a great day.
Cohort